Welcome back to the deep dive. So the new PGA Tour season is underway, and my entire social media feed is it's swing speed videos, it's launch monitor numbers.
It's the annual obsession, yeah.
It really is. Everyone's talking about bombing gouge, who's got 190-mile-per-hour ball speed.
The glamour stat. It always is.
It's so seductive, right? I mean, that sound of the driver is just the loudest thing in golf. But I want to, I guess, pump the brakes a little. We know players are hitting it further. That's a fact we're going to get into. But does that raw distance, does it actually lead to lower scores?
That is the big question. And if you just listen to the equipment ads, you'd think the answer is 100% yes.
Of course.
But when you actually dig into the data, the relationship between driving distance and, actual scoring average, it gets messy.
Messy is what we do here. So today we're going to walk through the evolution of distance from the old persimmon days to what's happening now. And we're going to break down this one chart that analysts call the blob.
My favorite chart in all of golf. It just shatters the whole distance is everything narrative.
Exactly. And we'll talk about how courses are trying to fight back and what the current world #1, who isn't the longest hitter, can teach all of us. So let's start with the numbers.
So,
I want to set a baseline first, because I think we all have recency bias, We see Rory and we just assume golf has always been a power game. Take me back to, say, the mid-1980s.
okay, yeah. It was a totally different world. If you look at the PGA Tour driving average from 1985 through the mid-90s, it's amazing how stable it was.
And what was the number?
It was just hovering right around 260 yards.
260. I mean, there are college kids now averaging 300.
Oh, easily.
Mm.
But you have to remember, the equipment, we're talking about actual wooden drivers,
Yeah.
persimmon,
Yeah.
and wound balata balls.
Okay, let's talk about the physics of that for a second, because those clubs weren't just heavy. They were so unforgiving.
Massively unforgiving. The moment of inertia, the MOI, was tiny compared to today. So if you miss the sweet spot by even like a quarter of an inch.
You're in the next fairway.
Exactly. You didn't just lose distance. The gear effect would spin the ball wildly offline. The penalty for a mishit was just huge.
So you couldn't just swing out of your shoes.
No way. Players were swinging at maybe 85% just to guarantee they found the center of the face. That's why the average stayed at 260 for a decade. It was a technological cap, not an athletic one.
And then came the mid-90s, the tech boom.
The revolution, yeah.
We all know about titanium drivers, but I've always felt the ball was the bigger story.
You're 100% right. The introduction of the multi-layer solid core ball.
Yeah.
I mean, specifically the Titleist Pro V1 in 2000. That was the moment everything changed.
Why that ball specifically? What did it do?
Well, before that, you had a trade-off. A soft wound ball would spin a lot, which was great for your wedges around the green,
Right.
but it also spun a ton off the driver. And that backspin just kills distance. The ball would balloon up and just fall out of the sky.
So you had to choose between greenside control and distance.
Exactly. The Pro V1 decoupled those two things.
Yeah.
Suddenly you could get the holy grail. High launch and low spin with the driver, but still have high spin with your irons.
And the data shows it. I'm looking at it here. Over about 15 years, driving distance jumped by 11%.
11%. That's just absurd in a professional sport. It completely broke the geometry of old golf courses.
Okay, so that brings us to the modern era. Let's say 2015 to now. The rules have sort of capped the spring-like effect of the driver face. The ball is regulated, but the average is still climbing. It's just under 303 yards now.
It is. And this latest jump isn't from some new material. We call it orchestrated optimization.
That sounds very corporate. Break that down for me.
It's basically the marriage of biomechanics and radar. I mean, guys now have launch monitors like TrackMan. They know their perfect launch angle and spin rate down to the decimal. They're chasing a number.
They're chasing smash factor. We hear that all the time.
Exactly. Which is just ball speed divided by clubhead speed. The limit is 1.50. With persimmon, you were lucky to get a 1.4. Today, these guys tune their swing and their gear to live at 1.49, 1.50 on every single drive.
And they're training like crazy, TPI, 3D motion capture.
Optimized athletes, optimized equipment, optimized data. That's the formula. That's how you get from 260 to 303.
So we've covered the how. The game is over 40 yards longer than it was. Logically, you'd think scores must be just plummeting.
You would absolutely think that.
I mean, if you're hitting wedge into a green instead of a 5-iron, you should be making more birdies, right? But that's not what happens when you plot driving distance against scoring average.
Yeah.
You don't get that clean, straight line.
No. You get the blob.
Describe the blob for us.
Okay, so imagine a graph. On the bottom, the x-axis, you have driving distance. Going up the side, the y-axis, is scoring average.
Okay.
Now, if distance was king, you'd see a nice, neat diagonal line. The further right you go, the lower your score. But that's not what you see. You see a scattered cloud of dots, a total mess.
Meaning there's basically no strong correlation.
Very little. I mean, it's an asset, for sure. You had to be long enough to even be on tour. But once you're out there, being 10 or 20 yards longer than the next guy is not a good predictor of who's going to win.
Let's use some real names. There are outliers, right? Like Rory McIlroy.
Rory is the exception that proves the rule. He's way down in that bottom right corner, elite distance and elite scoring. He shows it can be done.
But he's a unicorn.
He is. Because then you look elsewhere in the blob and you find a guy like Russell Henley.
Right. Not a short hitter by any means, but not a bomber.
No, he's around tour average. But he consistently ranks in, like, the top 5 for scoring average. He just peppers greens and makes putts.
Yeah.
His proximity to the hole is incredible.
So the bomber might have a wedge in his hand, but if he hits it to 20 feet and Henley hits a 7-iron to 12 feet...
Henley wins that hole. The advantage of the distance is gone if you can't convert it into a closer approach shot.
Which brings us to the ultimate proof. The world number 1. Scottie Scheffler.
This is the stat every amateur golfer needs to hear. Scottie Scheffler is the undisputed best player in the world. His strokes gained numbers are, they're historic.
Yeah, they're unbelievable.
So where do you think he ranks in driving distance?
I would have guessed top 15, maybe top 20.
He is around the 60th percentile.
The 60th. That's just barely above average.
Barely. He is miles behind guys like Rory. But his approach play, his iron game is just on another planet.
So that's it. That's the takeaway. Distance gets you a ticket to the dance, but it doesn't guarantee you'll go home a winner.
Exactly. Scheffler is living proof that you need good enough distance combined with truly elite precision and short game.
Okay, so if the players are figuring this out, what about the courses? Because for years, the response has just been add more yardage.
The panic move. And frankly, it's a lazy move.
Why? On the surface, making a hole 50 yards longer seems like it should make it harder.
Harder, yes. But it's not fair. In fact, lengthening holes often makes the game easier for the longest hitters. It's a classic unintended consequence.
Wait, how does that work?
Okay, simple scenario. A par 4 gets stretched to 490 yards. The bomber who hits at 320 still only has 170 engine. That's an 8-iron.
Okay, very manageable.
Very. But the shorter, more average length player who hits at 290, he now has 200 yards left. That's a 4-iron or a hybrid.
And the dispersion pattern on a hybrid is way wider than an 8-iron.
Massively wider. We're talking double the area of a potential miss. So the bomber is still firing at flags, while the shorter hitter is just trying to find the surface of the green.
So by adding length, you actually widen the gap between the long and short hitters.
You've punished precision and rewarded raw power. It's the opposite of what you want to do.
So what's the smart design response? If you want to challenge these guys without just building a 9,000-yard course.
It's all about geometry and risk-reward. You have to force decisions.
Give me an example.
Bunkering. The fairway bunkers on classic courses are at like 260 yards. The pros just fly them now. It's not a hazard.
Right.
So smart design moves those hazards to the 290 to 315-yard zone. Now the bomber has to think.
Do I take on that bunker or do I lay back?
Exactly. Or you narrow the fairway specifically in that landing zone. You make them thread a needle. You reward the player who can hit it 310 and straight, but you punish the guy who's just spraying it.
So you're making accuracy irrelevant again?
You're creating pinch points. If you can hit it long and straight, fantastic. You've earned your advantage. But if you're just long, the course should fight back.
This brings us to the advice portion of the deep dive. Because every amateur golfer listening to this wants to hit it further.
Of course. We all do.
But if Scottie Scheffler is only 60th percentile in distance, what's the real lesson for the weekend golfer?
The lesson is to stop trying to tiger-proof your own game.
Meaning?
Meaning, stop believing that adding 15 yards to your drive is the magic bullet that will fix your scorecard. Amateurs chase speed, and they swing out of their shoes.
But their dispersion gets worse.
It gets so much worse. You might gain 12 yards, but if your accuracy degrades by 30%, you're now 12 yards closer to the green, but in the trees.
Which, in strokes gain, is a massive loss.
A huge loss. A ball in the fairway at 240 yards is almost always better than a ball in the deep rough at 255.
So instead of thinking maximum distance, what's a better mindset?
I like the term preferred landing zones.
Okay.
That's how pros think. They're not just bombing it, they're picking a spot. For an amateur, that might mean hitting a 3-wood or even a hybrid off the tee to find the widest part of the fairway.
That's an ego hit for a lot of people, though.
It is an ego hit.
Hmm.
But for most mid-handicappers, their 3-wood is almost as long as their driver anyway, because they hit it so much more solidly. And it's way straighter.
And it avoids the penalty strokes, the double bogeys.
It avoids the card wreckers. If you're a good wedge player but not a bomber, lean into that. Become lethal from 150 yards and in. Don't try to be Rory overnight.
Play the game you actually have.
And play from the right tees. This is probably the biggest mistake in amateur golf.
Playing from the tips to feel like a pro.
Exactly. And you fall into that same trap. You're hitting hybrids into every par 4, your dispersion is huge, and you're not even playing the course the way it was designed to be played.
Moving up a tee box is probably the smartest, fastest way for most people to lower their score.
By a mile.
Yeah.
It puts the intended risk-reward features of the course back into play. You can actually use strategy instead of just trying to survive.
So when you pull it all together, the game is longer, for sure. The 303-yard average is real, but it hasn't become a one-dimensional long drive contest.
Not at the highest level, no. The technology has evolved, the athletes have evolved, but the fundamental task is unchanged. You still have to get the ball in the hole.
And hitting it 350 yards into a hazard doesn't help with that.
So drive for show, putt for dough is still true.
I'd probably update it a little bit, maybe drive for position, approach for scoring.
I like that. That's good.
So just to recap, we've gone from a 260-yard baseline to over 300 yards today, driven by titanium and multi-layer balls.
And pushed even further by optimization and data.
But the blob proves that distance alone has diminishing returns.
And Scotty Scheffler proves that a complete game will always beat a one-dimensional game.
So here's our final thought for you. The next time you're on the range and you pull out that driver, ask yourself one question. Are you just chasing that satisfying smash sound? Or are you actually trying to find a way to write a lower number on your scorecard?
Because the data is pretty clear that those are two very different goals.
Choose wisely. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.